ask that you fasten your seatbelts.
Launch sequence.
Launch sequence activated.
Launch sequence activated.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Woo! Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Launchcast. Ooh, it's been a couple of weeks. Chills. Feels goosebumps. Episode 110 today. Thank you for coming back, guys. It's Just Shut Up. You had me at Beurre Blanc with our guest today, Allison Fasano. But before we bring her in, I got to do my intro, right? Because you guys all missed it. It's your favorite podcast intro. I am the launch dad himself, George Andriopoulos, bringing you your favorite podcast on the planet, talking about my favorite things. We're talking leadership, life, business, and growth. And we're talking about it all because it's my show and I'll talk about whatever I want to. With us today, we have Allison Fasano. Chef Allison. Hey.
Hi, George.
Thank you for being here with us.
Of course.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. I'm going to do the quick intro before we jump in here. Allison knew at the age of 11 years old that she wanted to become a chef after seeing the Food Network for the first time. She fell in love with communicating through food. She began cooking alongside her father, who inspired her to just say yes to opportunities, something we're going to be talking about today. A message she didn't fully realize until he passed away 3 years ago. Her passion and drive took her halfway around the globe to study culinary arts in Calabria, Italy, where she specialized in regional Italian cuisine, or what Allison refers to as Nonna style. Food that tells you a story and gives you a hug on the inside. So much more, guys. Her passion and dynamic personality landed Allison in the most exciting culinary scenes in NYC, cooking alongside people she looked up to as heroes and now calls friends. Now, for the past 15 years, she has worked in Michelin star restaurants, including the Sagamore, Lydia and Joe Bastian. What is that? Tell me.
Tell me.
You say it.
Bastianich.
There you go. Del Posto. And most recently, Gatto with Bobby Flay's team as a sous chef. In 2017, she joined Urbani Truffle as one of their resident chefs and a whole bunch of other projects. She is a TEDx speaker and has appeared on Food Network's Beat Bobby Flay, Chopped, Fios' Restaurant Hunters, and Newsday Feed Me TV. She was recently featured by ChefWorks in February 2019, and she just shot a TV show on the new Disney Pixar streaming network, Quibi. Stay tuned for details on that. Holy shnikes. That's a long bio.
I mean, it's getting bigger, so.
And you're only 29.
I'm only 29.
Holy crap.
I'm making it to 30, George.
Yeah, you are making it to very soon, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Very, very soon. Thank you for being here. This is so awesome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's my pleasure. I never really get an opportunity to speak very often. So, when I do, I really take a full opportunity on to say stuff. Yeah,
well, I'm happy to hear that because, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but, the speaking world and what people do on it, whether it's on a stage, on a podcast, or just kind of getting your voice out there and your message out there, it's really important. You and I met just because you were a chef here in town. I met you through a colleague of mine, and then subsequently, a little while after we met, you actually spoke on my stage at TEDx Farmingdale.
Yep.
And we were so excited to have you. You talked about food waste, which I want you to get into a little bit later. But you've been sort of taking this journey as a speaker and sort of using the medium of food to get out there and spread some important messages.
Yeah, and if you would have told me like 10 years ago, someday you're going to be a public speaker, I've been like, yeah, right. Stop playing.
Yeah, well, it's really a leader that can sort of transform what they do and their passion in life and turn it into a message for others. And that's something I want to ask you right now, and that's really the first question that we ask all of our guests. Are you a leader?
I think absolutely, because I feel like my biggest thing is I'm very relatable. I love some comedians, and I'm like, oh, their jokes are funny because it's like relatable, like you get it. I feel like I'm a very relatable person, and then somebody told me recently, they're like, Allison, I think people like you because you don't take yourself too seriously, and that's a very accurate statement. That person seems like they know me very well. So I think that's why, because I'm very relatable, and I'm very like elbows on the table type of a person, you know?
Yeah. So what does that mean to you in terms of leadership? Like, what is your definition of a leader?
I think in leadership, it doesn't matter where you are in your career. Sometimes if you could say or do something and people recognized, I think you have to show, not tell people what to do. Like, it's like in a restaurant, whether I'm an executive chef or whatever my title is, I'm that one who sweeps and mops the floor and takes out the garbage. And people always like, why are you doing that? I'm like, because that's how I work.
Sure.
You know, so I think that when you show and not tell people what to do, I think that's, you are a leader. It doesn't matter how old you are or what profession you are in, no matter what your level is. I think you could still inspire people, because I think we all got where we are because somebody else inspired us.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting you say that. So number one is I love the thought of team leadership. When you don't put yourself ahead of the team, you know, when you sort of go in there to perform one goal together, a number of things happen. Number one is that you're leading by example, right, which is super important. And number two is you're actually helping to lift other people as you lead. You know, if they're as vested in the work, right, if it's not all, hey, this is my kitchen, and although you guys are going to cook for me, I'm the one that's going to get the glory. It's we got the glory as the kitchen.
Yeah.
You're going to elevate them.
Absolutely.
That line cook is going to become a sous chef, is going to become
Absolutely,
an executive
yeah.
chef. I'm sure that's how it happened for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about taking, like, you have to take one step. Like, you have to learn how to walk first. And I think that's in all careers. Like, you have to, like, start at the bottom, and it's always about earning your stripes.
Yeah.
And gaining respect by people that are in your profession.
Right.
So I think that's what's really important. And I might be 29, but I feel like I've done a lot in my career so far, and I continue to always do and go out and do more bigger and better stuff. I'm always like, what can I do next?
Yeah. To me, the sign of a leader, honestly, I've never been a believer in, you know, age needs to hold you back, or even having a college degree needs to define what you do for a living, or your success in life. Because when you kind of have that ability, when you have that, I don't know, that built-in leadership, although I do think that leadership is learned a lot of times from experiences, when you sort of have that innate reflex built into you, it kind of helps you along in the process, you know, throughout life, and gets you to that point eventually where that leadership will start to shine, whether you're 29 or 69,
Yeah.
you know. So I want to talk about one thing before we jump into the order of events here. We always start sort of from baby Allison, and we work up to 29, just shy of 30 Allison. That's
Okay.
how we do things here. But one thing I want to address first, since we're talking about leadership, we're talking about public speaking. I've been reading in my research about you, about your mantra. You do a fair amount of public speaking now, and I'm sure that's going to increase as the years pass and your experience builds. But this whole say yes to every opportunity mantra, I love this thing. We had a mutual colleague that told me about your keynote at the Athena Long Island Leadership Awards, and I love the message that you sent out. So tell us about that message of say yes to every opportunity, and sort of where that came from and how you apply it.
Yeah, so like growing up, my father always used to say, you know, if you don't put yourself out there, no one's gonna know you exist. So I never knew what that actually meant to after he passed away. I knew it meant to say yes to opportunities, because he used to say, you know, no one's gonna go out, and I always wanted to have my own TV show and be on the Food Network, and he was like, you know, no one's gonna come to you and be like, here's your show. You have to like go out and get it. And, you know, start saying yes. So when I started saying yes, I realized how many doors that has opened. And sometimes I think sometimes I say yes, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but I figure it out later. So
Yeah.
I think that's what you have to do. So I think he definitely inspired me to say yes to, you know, opportunities. And, you know, sometimes I think you're afraid to say yes. I think people are afraid to say yes. I think it's fair to say, you know, anything new that you're about to jump into. But when you say yes, you realize, like, you don't know who's watching, you don't know who's going to be there, what connections you're going to make, and somebody might look at you and be like, oh, you know what, you'll be great at this.
Right.
You know, like I said yes to doing the TED Talks. I remember being like, why am I doing a TED Talk? Or, you know, I said yes to Jen when we did the, you know, Athena Awards, and I remember getting to the Athena Awards and being like, why am I giving the speech on leadership? Like, why am I here? Like, why am I doing this? And then, you say yes, you do your speech, and then people are like, well, that inspired me. Or, people even reaching out after this and being like, I loved your message, and somebody asked me to do something, and I said yes because of what you said. And I'm like, that's all about saying yes. I feel like, I think we're afraid, but this it's like going in a pool. You just have to go in head first.
Well, that's the effect of leadership, right? In essence, in that when you put yourself out there, leadership to me is all about just standing up and say, okay, I'll do it. I'll be the one, right?
Yeah.
And so when you get up there and just tell people how you got to some kind of success, and that can rub off on one person, that's a huge deal. I put a post up yesterday, a social media post. I'm getting into my own speaker season now for the next few months. I have a bunch of things booked.
That's my favorite season, George.
Isn't
Speaker
it?
season. I think that's everybody. It's like baseball, football, speaker season.
It's winter.
Yes.
It's winter, speaker season, spring,
Yeah.
summer. Yeah.
It's my favorite. I think everybody who's listening is like, that's my favorite. Speaker season.
I put a post up about this, talking about the responsibility that it takes to be a leader and to be on a stage. And I put out this thought of, when I get up on a stage, I have this inner thought of like, hey, I know that I'm helping at least one person with this talk. And if I've helped one person at every talk that I've done, that's a lot of people. What if I help 5 people, 10 people, 100 people at every talk? So that's really creating a lot of change. So I definitely, I think you're doing a great job so far at this age, and I can't wait to see what more you do.
Yeah, and I also think that when you do, like, whether you do a speech or you could have you don't have to be on a stage or a platform,
Right.
but when you talk to somebody, sometimes somebody would say something today, and like 10 years down the road, you're like, oh, that's what this person meant by this.
Yeah.
Like you finally, it like clicks.
It
So
clicks.
you remember what they said. I remember people said things to me, and I'm like, I don't get what that means. I remember a chef told me once, Allison, you could bend the tree when it's young, not when it's old. And I was just like, at the time, I didn't know what that meant. And then, like, as I got older and, moved on in my career, I remember seeing these kids straight out of culinary school, and you could be like, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And, like, they absorb everything like a sponge. And then I was like, oh, this is what this means. Like, you can mold them, like, when they're young, and then, to however you want, and train them and teach them stuff. So I was like, that's what he meant.
Did that have an effect on you later in life? Kind of.
It did, because I say that all the time, and then people think I made that up. So people are like, wow, Allison, you have a lot of great. I was like, I didn't make that up, but they don't need to know.
Like,
that.
you're like
but now
the-
everybody just knows I didn't make that saying up.
You're like the Yoda of the culinary world.
I mean, you can
dropping
bend the
knowledge
tree
bombs.
when it's young, not when it's old.
Yeah, those are something we talk about in the show a lot. We talk about spark moments, these moments in life where sometimes you realize in the moment, and sometimes you don't realize until later on. But it's these moments where you kind of look back and you understand, and you go, yeah, that was pivotal for me. Just learning that bit of knowledge or experiencing what I experienced, that was pivotal to my growth as a person.
Absolutely. I think, like, majority of the times when I talk about something, you have to remember, like, I cook, I work in the food business, so everything's, like, relatable to that. But I feel like some topics it's in every career,
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's get to the fun stuff here.
Okay,
We're
let's
gonna talk about the journey here. We're gonna start in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, which was probably not as gentrified as it is now when you
No,
live there.
so I was
Yeah.
born and raised in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. That's why, I talk a little different than everybody else.
That's okay. We were just talking
Sometimes
about.
I need a translator.
We were just talking about before the show my Long Island. What do you call it? A drawl, an accent? I don't know. That gives you a little character. I like that.
Yeah, it does. I know I mispronounce a lot of words, and a lot of times I tend to, like, mumble, and then I was like, or I talk really fast. So, like, doing, like, public speaking, I've learned to kind of simmer down a bit.
Simmer down.
I turn
Simmer
the pot
son.
down a little. The pot's just on simmer at this point. Can't be on boiling.
So little baby Allison running
Little baby
around.
Allison.
She's running around in a diaper and a do-rag. Right?
That's pretty accurate. I mean, my mom sends you some baby pics.
Oh, that would be great. Your
No.
mom is on, by the way.
Oh, she is. Okay,
Is that Debbie?
great. Debbie's on.
Debbie posted that your mom is watching.
My mom she wants to know if this will be over before The Young and the Restless starts. 12:30.
So, little baby Allison, do-rag in a diaper,
Yeah,
running
pretty
around,
accurate.
listening to Celine Dion,
Listen to Celine Dion. That's
blasting
right.
it. My heart
Yeah.
will go on.
Yeah, so I actually loved Celine Dion since I was 4 years old. And people like, that's so weird. I'm almost like, well, when my uncle got married, his wedding song was The Power of Love by Celine.
Ah.
So the next day when we went out, I begged my mom to buy me like the Celine Dion. I think at the time it was like a cassette.
Yeah.
And since then, I've just always loved Celine Dion.
You're a Dion head since then.
I've been a Dion head, rockin' hardcore to Celine. But when you go to like a public school in Brooklyn and you're listening to the latest Celine Dion album, you're not like the coolest kid in school.
Yeah.
You know
So
what I'm
everybody
saying?
in Brooklyn's listening to Big E.
No, that's
And
you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. I remember like listening to Celine Dion. Like the teachers loved my choice of music,
I'm
but
sure the
nobody,
teachers
nobody else did, and it was fine. So at that movement, I known that I was going to be something special. Like I was like stuff that nobody else likes, and it was fine.
So Celine Dion made you
Celine
feel like you
Dion.
were special.
Celine Dion made me feel special. Like at
Did
that
you make-
moment, I was just like, I'm gonna like everything that nobody else likes.
Did you make it hardcore to be a Dion fan?
I mean, I actually have a Celine Dion tattoo. I think a lot of people know that.
Oh my God! I
It
would
says my
love
heart
to
will
see
go
that.
on.
Yes.
My
Is that
heart will
real?
go- It is real. My heart will go on.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So
We're gonna end the
hardcore-
show on that. Done.
All right. So thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. So Dion.
Yep.
And then we move on. And then we move on to your love of food. So I read somewhere that you started watching the Food Network after school every day at 11 years old, and that's where it all began.
And
right?
that's where the magic happened. So actually, I never really watched the Food Network before. Like, also, like, what are you watching at 11? I mean, who's watching the Food Network? I mean, Allison is. So
My kids love the Food Network, by the way.
Yeah.
Love it.
So I was like flipping through the channels and I landed across this show, and I was like, I couldn't seem to change channel. This person like had this great ability to let their walls down and let people in, and they were such a great storyteller, and they just always smiled the whole time. And that show was actually 30-Minute Meals with Rachael Ray. So I remember going to my dad. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be Rachael Ray. And he was like, you know, you're going to be better than Rachael Ray. And then that's kind of how the whole cooking journey started. So I found my love of food, and, you know, I didn't do very well in school because I was like at home watching the Food Network. And I think I would record shows. Like before there was DVR, I used to like put in a VHS tape and like record shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like hardcore.
That was you.
That
had
was
a
my
bunch
school.
You had a bunch of tapes labeled.
Bunch of lineups.
Food
going. Everyday Italian season 1, popped it in.
So talk to me about besides, well, you could talk about the Food Network too, but talk to me about your cooking influences when you were young, when you were that young.
So, you know, my mom's listening, so we can't. She didn't really cook anything. So growing up, so she'll tell you that's
Please tune
real.
out, Debbie. Please tune out.
So that's a pretty accurate statement. But before I was born, my father was a baker. So we used to like bake like growing up. So like I would cook a lot with him, and my father was Italian. So we used to make all the Italian goodies. And so he was like, we would barbecue a lot too. And of course, watching the Food Network, that was like my biggest influence. Like I used to just like sit on the couch for hours and just watch the Food Network. Like on a Friday night, I was home at 9 o'clock, no matter where I was, to watch back-to-back episodes of $40 a Day with Rachael Ray. I'll never forget that.
Wow.
I actually, you know, it's bad that I remember the time slot she was on. It was 9 o'clock on Friday. So I didn't really have like the hardcore, let's go out on Friday night. I was just like, okay, got to go home and
That's
watch
okay.
Food Network.
It worked out, didn't it?
It worked out for me.
It's funny you say your dad was a baker. We were spitballing some ideas for the show title, and we came up with "Shut Up, You Had Me at Beurre Blanc" as
Yeah.
a title, which I've been told that
I'm
is
gonna put
not
that
a
on
good
my
title.
I'm gonna put that on my Tinder like tagline. Not on that if anybody's listening.
There were two other choices. One choice was "May the fork be with you,"
Oh, that's a good one.
which didn't work out. And if you were a baker, it would have been "Go ahead, bake my day."
Oh,
So
I love this one. Like I saw your title. I was like, that's pretty cool. I would never thought to make a title like that.
Yeah, we like the
It's
kitschy
very
titles
that's
here.
that's a, and also you wrote Beurre Blanc. That's like a fancy word, George. I'm so proud of you.
Go in my Google history from last night, and I was Googling top cooking terms, top professional cooking terms, and I saw Beurre Blanc. I was like, all right, I'm trying to make it rhyme with, not rhyme, but make it sound like you had me at hello. You had me at Beurre Blanc. All right, it worked out. It worked out.
It did work out.
So it's funny that you were watching Rachael Ray on TV, and and we'll get into this, but you now actually know Rachael Ray.
That's a pretty accurate statement. I do have her phone number. I forgot to tell her to tune in today. I'll get back to her a little later.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Rachel, please shout us out. We need it. We need it. Yeah, we'll get into that. But it's crazy how you get to meet some of your heroes when you're really passionate about what you do, right?
Yeah, and then also my thing in my head is like, you ever talk to yourself before you do something like
Always.
act cool? Like you do like a whole pump, like,
That's
like
exactly what I
leans,
did before
like,
you got here. I was
leans
like,
in,
all right, George,
like,
act cool.
Yeah, you do like a lean in, like.
Yeah. What's up?
I'm
what's
cool.
What's up?
Yeah, that's pretty. That was what
What's
I
up?
was doing the first time I met. Well, actually, the first time I met Rachael Ray, I won't lie, I cried.
Okay.
I was like 18, went to like a book signing. I was so excited, and when I get really excited, or when I laugh really hard, I cry.
Okay.
I don't like my emotions are really messed up. So I meet Rachel with a shirt that says "I Heart Rachael Ray" on it, and then like I still have the photo today. Like we're hugging, and I'm crying, and it was like it was just like a
You
lot.
got to get me that to post.
I will. Don't
Yeah.
worry. I have it framed in my house.
So I want to talk about your first job in your younger years. So your first job was at 14 years old in an Italian bakery in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me about how that sort of influenced the career going forward.
Yeah, so of course, like when you're 14, who's hiring you? Like, let's face these facts. So I remember going to this bakery, and he was like, well, why do you want to work here? And actually, my answer was, I love the smell of bread, which if anybody has ever been out to a restaurant with me, they put bread on the table, and the first thing I do is smell the bread to this day. Like, everybody knows that. It's like a weird thing. I've done it since I was a kid. My friends always like, I know what Allison's will do. She still smell the bread. It's what I do. So
Yeah, you're weird. It's okay.
It's a little weird, but I just love the smell of bread. I think the smell of yeast, like everybody knows I make pasta a lot, the dough, the yeast, it's very like a therapeutic like
Sure.
smell.
I get it.
It's like a, I don't know, it's a weird thing.
I get it.
But I just love the smell of bread. So that's how I got a job there, because I love the smell of bread. So I would like cord the bread. I did all the jobs there that I didn't get hired to do. And then they'd be like, Allison, you're supposed to work the counter. And I was like, I don't want to bag cookies for people.
Yeah.
You
want to be in the back cooking.
Yeah, I would
baking.
be like scoring the bread with like the knife, and we would put the bread in the oven, and then I would like pipe cannolis, and like that's what I really enjoyed doing. They're like, Allison, you're supposed to work, the counter. Like so and so wants a cappuccino, and I was like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, you knew what you wanted.
Well, I knew that's why I worked there, to do like the food part. They're like, you could work the counter. I was like, I got this. Just weeble my way into the back.
So before you finished up high school, you had a couple of other jobs, right?
Yeah, we spoke about where I actually worked because we're drinking coffee from there today. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Okay, so when I was in high school, I worked at Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say it's like the high point of my career. It's definitely not on my resume.
Uh-huh.
But I consider myself to be a barista now.
Okay, there you go.
So,
Wait, are they actually baristas at Dunkin' Donuts?
I mean,
Technically?
also, George, you met me. I make a lot of stories up. So,
And we will say the famous podcast line, Dunkin' Donuts is not a sponsor,
okay,
but they could be.
I did. And here's...
Look at that. This whole thing is powered by Dunkin' Donuts,
Yeah, we just
unofficially.
unofficially powered.
So during this whole time, talk to me about how your family supported your dream. Well, first of all, I should say, when did you actually make the decision that you want to do this for?
Oh, at 11.
At 11.
Bam.
Done.
And also, like when you say things when you're a kid, like, I want to grow up and do this, and people are like, you're going to change your mind.
Yep.
No.
Done.
I was done. I saw Rachel, and I was like, that's what I want to do. But I feel like a lot of people, when I tell them the story of how, I knew I wanted to become a chef after seeing Rachael Ray, everyone always says, she's not a chef, she's a cook. And I'm like, that's why I love Rachel. Because I think she never tries to be something that she's not.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you ever know Rachel's story, like, if you ask her, she's like, I should have never been on TV. She's like, I'm just a server from upstate New York. She just did like local TV. And then she finally did like a segment on like the Today Show, and somebody from Food Network saw her, and she was just like, I'm not what you want. I'm not a chef. And she walked out of the interview at Food Network. And then I guess you could say the rest is history, because she has a daytime talk show and she wins Emmy Awards. And I think her message and how she was like, even, when I was 11 to now, it's like the same. She doesn't try to be anything she's not.
Right.
She still tells a great story. She's still doing those 30-minute meals. And
Yep.
I think that's why she's relatable. And she also cooks food that you could find locally at your grocery store. All the ingredients that she's using. And she reaches such a big audience. Because I think a lot of times you tune into a cooking show, whether if you're a home cook or you're a professional chef, and you want to make what that person's making. And I think Rachel created such a brand for herself that she still carries for, all these years. So
Yeah. So she's not putting like gooey duck in her recipes or anything
no,
like that.
she's not. And I think it's so important, like when I've done a few cooking classes, and I always want to use ingredients that you can find at your local grocery store because I feel like you're more likely to make it. Because I remember there would be like this one show I would watch, and they would say, you can only find this ingredient one time a year in Italy. I think that's when you go click, because you're obviously not making that.
Yeah.
I feel like if you relate to people, like I bought this here, and then that's why, Rachel's so relatable. And I've met her several times, and she's nothing but so nice, and she's so fabulous. And it's like, how do you not like her?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you a side note before we move on. Speaking of the ingredients that you use, is there a signature taste for you in terms of seasoning, spices that you like to use? And I'll use as an example. I grew up in a Greek household, but we cooked Italian, we cooked whatever. Now I cook different kind of cuisines, but the taste for me of salt, pepper, and oregano on anything is just king.
Yeah.
King.
I always think salt and pepper is really important to food. I think a lot of times when I try a dish, I'm like, I need some more salt. Salt is really important. Also, I love using kosher salt. I feel like people use iodine salt, which is, I just want to say side note, 2 years ago, I didn't know it was pronounced iodized salt, so I used to call it idolized salt. And then somebody was like, Allison, I love you, but it's not called idolized salt. And I was just like, who knew? And then I was so, I can't be good at everything, but kosher salt, I just like really big, bold, flavorful foods.
Yeah.
I like food that has many different layers to it. But, there should be flavor in every layer of food. So,
Yeah.
but I could eat anything really.
Yeah.
It depends what I'm in the mood for.
Sure. Sure. So I want to move on to when you were working at the Sagamore in Lake George at 17 years old. That had a big influence on you, right?
Yeah, I feel like the Sagamore was my school because I learned how to do everything there. I was a hostess, I was a server, I worked room service, I cooked there, I worked banquets. So it's kind of like I did everything, and I learned so much working there. And I got hired there when I was 17. My Aunt Diane worked there. And also, side note, Rachael Ray worked there back in the early 90s.
Oh.
So, we're kind of the same
So
person.
samesies, right? Yeah,
Samesies.
I feel like in 10 years I'm gonna read about you wearing Rachael Ray's skin suit or something.
Me and Rachel, the same person. A few years from now, I'm gonna be hosting a show like Rachel.
Yes, you are.
I'll have an Emmy or just be nominated for one. I'm a nominated person. I don't need to win. Just want to be nominated because when you win, there's nowhere else to go. So I just want to be straight across the board nominated. So working at the Sagamore, I got hired as a hostess. That was my first job there. And actually my last job there, I was the head chef of the same restaurant. So.
Oh, cow. Wow.
Wing, wing.
Look at you. Full circle.
Full circle.
You did it, baby.
I remember some of the same people worked there and they were like, Allison, remember you, the hostess? I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I wasn't really a good hostess because we did the TED Talks and you were like, you have to stand in the circle. And I actually really can't stay still. That's my problem. So being a hostess and you just stand there was not, I knew that I couldn't. So I was everywhere else besides at the hostess stand. And somebody was like, in order to see people, you actually have to be at the hostess stand. And I was like, interesting. Didn't know that.
I'm going to take a break for a second just to say that we have a couple of minutes left of the live show. Where are we right now? Let's look at the time. All right, we're 28 minutes. You know what? We'll probably do another 5 and then end the live part of the show, and then you guys are going to come back to us on Monday morning at 6 a.m. when we release this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, everywhere podcasts are available. So let's just get to a couple of comments now coming up on the Facebook feed.
There's our boy Dave. I see him from here.
Dave Thompson said, "Oh snap!"
Our TED Talk speaker.
Our fellow TED Talk speaker.
Also, can we just say a funny note about Dave?
Yeah, go ahead.
When we did that, remember we did that whole big conference on the phone,
Yes.
and I was cooking. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
And then Dave comes up to me. He was like, "What were you making with squid ink?" And that's what I always remember. He made fun of me because I had like I had squid on my hands, and you were like, Allison, do a brief intro of yourself. And he was like, you had squid on your face. I was like, yeah, I'm fully aware, Dave. I knew I was a mess. Thank you.
Thank you for being observant,
Thanks,
Dave. Debbie Fasano, Allison, your mom is watching. Your mom is watching you.
She's like,
always.
she's probably happy that The Young and the Restless is on now, so she's probably watching that.
We have Ashley. Who's
That's
Ashley?
my sister.
Little baby Allison. She loved that part. Little
Yes.
baby Allison with a heart. And your mom said, I was with you for that. Ashley says, oh my God, she smells all the bread. And
That's
she
pretty
seems
accurate.
Very embarrassed about that. And your mom said, all the time you smell the bread. Rich McGuire says, turn up, girl.
Thanks, Rich.
We have John, we have Estella, we have Dave. Thanks for joining, guys. Quite a few more. Okay, so let's do another few minutes. We'll end the live show and then
Because I
move
feel
on
like
to the
people
rest.
want to tune in for the rest because I feel like I haven't even told my best jokes yet.
You have not. And
Yeah,
she
we're
is
just
a
really
comedian.
warming up. I'm really pretty funny.
Yeah,
I'm in the
this-
wrong career. I'm
this-
just switching over.
This lady does comedy
So
in
funny.
her
Naturally.
kitchen. Naturally.
Naturally.
Look at you. You do it all.
You know, I'm kind of like if Rachael Ray meets Chelsea Handler.
There you go. I could
That's
see
what I
that.
am. It's the blonde hair about the Chelsea.
I hope there's less vodka involved.
I mean, also, you know, me
Or
and
not.
Chelsea's birthdays are a few days apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's a Pisces. We're both blonde.
Yeah.
We're both really funny.
Is that another one that you're stalking currently, or is
I
it
do
just
love. I've
Rachael Ray?
always loved Chelsea Handler. I think she's just so funny, and her jokes are very relatable. She's like a great storyteller. When she tells a story, you could like picture yourself being there.
She is.
But with a lot of her stories, I don't think you actually really want to be there with her. But
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
I have all her books, actually.
Yes,
Yeah, I have all her books. I've seen her do stand up a couple of times
very funny.
in person. Like really,
Very
really
funny.
funny. Yeah. Let's get back to it. So the Sagamore. After that, so you graduate high school. Interestingly enough, you wanted to go to CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, and you got denied.
Yeah, I mean, why do you have to bring that up, George?
How'd that feel?
No,
How'd that feel, Allison?
terrible.
Tell me.
So actually, the CIA was the only school I wanted to go to. Like even before I stepped into high school, I was like, I'm gonna go to the Culinary Institute of America. So like senior year, that was the only school I applied to. And I remember getting this letter and said, sorry, you're not accepted. And I just remember I cried. I was so sad that I didn't get accepted. And then since that day forward, I've worked with a lot of people from that school, and I purposely work right next to them. So
I love
to
that.
show that I might be a little bit better, and I
The
tell
spark
them the
moment.
story.
That's a spark moment right there.
Yeah.
Rejection, and I've experienced this so many times. Rejection, for me, there were certain moments of rejection in my life that really became pivotal, where I either said, I have to move on from this, or I'm going to be better than anybody at this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the CIA is a little sorry now because they could have had this star underneath their belt, but YOLO. So
And you are a star. YOLO.
Thank you.
Hashtag YOLO. What is growth look like after that moment, right? You're in that moment of rejection. You're despondent. You're upset. You're crying. And then you have to figure out how to move forward. What is that, once you sort of grieve what happened with that rejection, what's that moment where you kind of say, all right, it's time to move on?
Oh, like 5 seconds later.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, that's how Allison moves. Gets denied, see you in 5 minutes.
So
I'll
you
be
have no
back.
feelings whatsoever. You have a cold black heart.
I mean, but also, like, how long are you going to dwell on something? I'm like, you didn't get it. Like, not getting accepted to a school, it's not like the worst thing that could possibly happen. And there's so many other culinary schools out there. So it's like, why am I going to cry over this? Like, just give me 5 seconds. Let's get over it, and let's see where we could move forward from there.
Yeah, I love that. You wound up going to Johnson & Wales for a year
Yes.
and then decided,
Let's just do Italian cuisine.
yeah, time for a change. And then you went to Calabria, Italy at 19 to study at the Italian Culinary Institute.
Yep.
Yeah, talk to me about that experience. And I'm going to ask you a really good question about this after you tell us about the experience there. But I want to hear about what was the goal going in there?
So, going to Italy was great because that's what I want to study is Italian cuisine, and what better way than to go where it comes from. So I studied regional Italian cuisine. So Calabria, if you don't know, it's like the southern part of Italy. So we did everything from pasta to gelato to bread, studied because each region, there's 20 regions of Italy. Each region has dishes that they're known for. We learned about wine and olive oils and like real Italian food because people say, "Oh, I love Italian food. Chicken parmesan's my favorite." I'm like, "That's not Italian," and people get like really sad when I tell them this. So it's about knowing the food and like what comes from there and what's real Italian food. And I think what the Italian cuisine has taught me is like, in Italy, they have some of the best produce in the world. So it's about showcasing each ingredient for what it is. And, that's what I loved about going to Italy and learning about like the food and the ingredients and the experience and meeting the people. And it definitely like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that follow me on like social media or whatever. I do make pastas a lot and I love the Italian cuisine, and pasta is like my favorite thing to eat. So.
Yeah. It's interesting you say showcasing each ingredient, because when you think about the different different types of cuisine from all over the world, when you look at Italian food, really the ingredients are the MVPs, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's not where there are some cultures where I think of paella, where there's a lot of like a mishmash of different ingredients that sort of come to make one big flavor. But with Italian food, it's really like each thing is its own star in the meal.
Absolutely. And it's all about, this like layers of flavors. And in Italian cuisine, really, like if you look at recipes, it's not like multiple ingredients. It's like minimal ingredients, really showcasing their flavors and what they have to offer. And I think that's where I had this love, like the Nonna style, which is very like rustic, and that's like my favorite style to cook, or as I call it, very like elbows on the table. Like at restaurants, I love describing restaurants as that because it's more like relaxed, and even like plating wise, I always tell people organic rustic, like let the food fall where it is. Like you don't have to perfectly plate it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good place to cut this off. We're going to get into next
All the dirty details.
all the dirty details.
We're
All the hidden secrets that Allison doesn't know I'm going to be bringing up
I'm
here.
going to tell you who my Valentine is.
Oh, my God.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't have one. Applications are open now. I know.
Swipe right for Allison Fasano. She is on every
maybe
major...
I do, maybe I don't.
She
Who
is on
knows?
every major dating app out there.
That's not true. I'm not.
She's not.
I'm
kidding.
not. Can you imagine? I don't even know what to do. People are like, what's your interest? I don't know.
You got to get on that celebrity one.
Is there one?
I forget what it is called. Oh, man, I got to look this up. I'll mention it in the second segment. There's a celebrity one. There's one where it's all celebrities on there. There's like a vetting process.
I would not do very well on IBS. I just can't. I'm
yeah.
more on like Instagram and Facebook. I'm not a dating app type of gal.
All right.
All
right. Then you just be here. Be on the Launchcast.
Thanks. I'm also really a cheap date because I really don't eat or drink a lot. So that's
perfect. And we're getting into that. We are. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on the live portion of the Launchcast. Allison Fasano, thank you for being here.
Of course.
Awesome.
We're hanging out for a while. Everybody has to tune in on Monday.
You have to tune in on Monday. Monday, 6 a.m., episode 110 gets released on all major podcasting platforms. Anything we mention here, all links, they're going to be in the show notes on the podcast, and we'll put them into the Facebook notes as well. Guys, thank you for being here. Allison, pleasure.
Thank you.
We're
staying tuned.
We'll see.
We're going to stay drinking coffee.
We're going to drink coffee. We're going to drink our Dunkin'.
Coffee talk.
Later, guys.
Launch sequence terminated.
Into the black.